We are, the Marine Exchange and I are actually really new to the Esri community. So a lot of this talk is just going to introduce who we are and sort of set the stage for hopefully having some more conversations about the kind of data that we work with and the kind of analyses that we're interested in, and maybe some ways that we can also help you guys in your various projects. So first question people usually have about a marine exchange is, what exactly is it? So really briefly, for over 100 years, marine exchanges all over the place have basically done vessel tracking and vessel watching and shared that information with commercial industry and with port authorities to help keep ports, to help to maintain order and peace in commercial ports. That pretty much holds true today. You see marine exchanges around the country where previously marine exchanges used telescopes and chalkboards to be able to track vessels. Now we use AIS, or an automatic identification system, which I'm sure some of you are at least familiar with. For those of you who aren't, vessels of certain size, generally large vessels, and some vessels who choose to carry a smaller size, now have a way of automatically identifying themselves to vessels around them. The signal is also sent out to terrestrial receivers and is also received by satellites when they're far from shore. And this basically gives us a picture, you can kind of see in the lower right, a picture of vessel activity going on throughout the world. In the lower 48, in the contiguous US, the Coast Guard runs these AIS receiver stations, the terrestrial ones. But up here in Alaska, we actually have about a third of the United States' entire coastline. And the type of coastline that we have is often uninhabited, it's dangerous, it's far from any other type of infrastructure. And so the Coast Guard finds it difficult to build terrestrial AIS receivers along our coast. Now, a lot of that is because they have they have to reach certain standards in order to build these stations. So we actually don't have to, as an independent organization, we don't have to meet exactly the same types of standards that would be in place in the lower 48. We can kind of work with other companies, we can work with other places, we can build smaller stations. And so we actually build the stations, AIS receivers in Alaska. And then we take that data and we send it out. We send it to the Coast Guard, we send it to the state of Alaska, and we work with other industry partners. Our motivating idea is really that in the maritime industry, in this community, we like to enforce safety, efficiency, and environmental responsibility. So the title of this talk actually comes from the phrase, when the wind, or fair winds and following seas, which is a kind of blessing or a good luck to those around us. But as you can imagine, in the Northern Pacific, especially at this time of year, you can actually see this is the forecast for tomorrow. Oh, I'm not sure. It says it needs to start my video. So this is the forecast for tomorrow. Those are 30-foot seas. Winds, we're looking at 50 to 60 miles an hour for tomorrow, and all of that is beginning today. So when we work in Alaska, we are often dealing with conditions that aren't fantastic. This is a picture that we keep in our own office as something to think about. We believe that prevention is key in Alaska, that it's better to prevent an accident than to have to respond to it. So to prevent an oil spill or prevent a cargo spill, than to have to respond to it. On the right is the Selendang IU. It was a shipping vessel that came into, it actually had mechanical problems, got involved with some weather issues, it got pushed up onto shore and essentially broke apart. And in the situation, they lost cargo, a ton of soybeans actually ended up on the ocean floor. They lost fuel oil and we lost lives. So that's the kind of thing that we try to prevent. We know that weather, human error, and concerns, there are all sorts of psychological concerns involved in how vessels move through the waters. The captain of a vessel is not necessarily, in fact, rarely, the person who actually owns the vessel. And so he has someone he has to answer to. When they have to slow down or ask for more time to get somewhere, they often have to deal with punishment for that. So basically, we like to know where vessels are. We want to know when they're in trouble. Being able to see vessels and knowing what's going on with them allows us to help get responses to the places they need to be. So this is pretty much who we are. Distance from shore equals time to respond, and timely notice equals time to respond. We break up what we do into two areas: maritime domain awareness. This is being able to see the vessels. This is also knowing what's going around in the environment. To help in this, we build those AIS receivers. So we pick up positions from vessels all around Alaska. We also push out real-time weather information to anybody who's interested in it. Anybody from a large vessel captain to a sailboat captain, near shore, can go onto our website and see real-time weather. We also deal in maritime domain management. So once we can see the vessels, we help manage where they're going. So that top picture was actually taken this morning. Those are ships moving through the Aleutian Islands area. That big area in the left that you can see where there is nobody, that is because of that large storm you saw just a couple pictures ago. We work with the Alaska Maritime Prevention and Response Network to enforce the alternative planning criteria. There's a lot of phrases we can talk about later if you have any questions about it, but it's basically a Coast Guard program that helps keep vessels offshore as they move through the Great Circle Route of Alaska, so that everybody has time to respond if a vessel finds itself in trouble. We also have historical data for the past 10 years, and we do a lot of work with geofencing and reporting with all sorts of government agencies. So really what I was interested in coming to the Esri community is letting you know that this type of data is available and out there, but also to begin asking you some of the questions that will help us determine how we can improve our system and how we can also begin talking about ways that we can support the idea that prevention is key. So if you're on a vessel, there are all types of ways that a captain gets information. And as time goes on, more and more information is becoming available much easier to those captains. So a captain has an electronic display. Right now they can get weather, they can get environmental conditions, they obviously have charting. We're working on ways to push notices to mariners so that they can see in real time when concerns come up. Those of you who are interested in biology and ecology, which is where I got my start, we're beginning to talk about how to show and enforce dynamic marine protected areas. All of these are tools that are going to be coming more and more online in the future, and being able to get support for these tools, it would actually really help if we could find a way to quantify how that prevention is useful. So let's just give a case idea. This is our Aleutians area for the past year. Green lines, green tracks are cargo vessels, blue tracks are fishing vessels, pink are passengers, so small cruise ships usually, and the orange are tugs. To give you an idea of the sense or the size of the area that we're looking at, tug assistance is really only in Dutch Harbor up in the upper right, and the Aleutian chain itself is approximately 1,100 miles long. So when a cargo vessel comes through the area, or when a tanker comes through the area, they are in Alaska waters for several days at a time. Now that last image was given by both terrestrial and satellite data. When we start looking at how to improve our system, we're looking at where we might want to improve those terrestrial receptions. So some of the things that come to mind are, where have we seen incidents with vessels? This was just a couple of years. These were incidents large enough that we considered them red page events, where we actually started contacting people who could deal with either getting a tug sent out or deal with some of the larger questions of how to manage a upcoming incident. This gives you another sense of just how many incidents happen at a go. This is about a year's worth of data, and this gives an idea. Sometimes we'll see a vessel just slow down due to scheduling. We see them slow down due to weather avoidance. We see them due to some sort of maintenance or propulsion casualty. Anytime a vessel slows down when it's in this kind of I-5 traffic pattern here, that's something we take note of. Vessels don't usually slow down, and if they do, there's generally something to be concerned about. Now, this was also something else that we started taking a look at. This was 2019 in tanker transits. We wanted to know where they were slowing down, where areas of concern might be. And this gives you an idea of what our terrestrial sites see. So these are the tracks. You can kind of see along the top how much of the track the terrestrial receivers are seeing and how much of the track is missing because they would otherwise have been picked up by the satellite. So one of the questions here that was posed to us by another organization was, if we had the freedom to build another receiver or to improve reception in certain areas, where would we want to do that? And the kind of analysis that I'm interested in would look at how much of these tracks we're missing, how much distance, how much time we're missing compared to how close to shore. And this is something that I'm excited to start looking at, but definitely would appreciate guidance with. So now if we move to a completely different part of Alaska, we're looking at Glacier Bay National Park. This also gives you an idea of things that we see down here. So this is in Southeast Alaska. You've got at the terminal end of these fjords, you've got glaciers that either end as tidewaters where they break off and provide icebergs, or they've pulled a little bit further back up on shore. So this is a comparison. We know how far the vessels go up because we have some satellite reports. We also know, comparing to that, how well our receivers are seeing up into the bay. Now, of interest is if we want to rely on our terrestrial receivers as opposed to satellite only, we want to be able to see further up. So the justification for being able to see further up or building other sites would be, how much of that track, how much of that time are we losing? Now, this is an interesting case because Glacier Bay National Park, again, has everybody from small, tiny boats to large cruise ships that hold thousands of people. And in this particular area where we're not seeing as well with our terrestrial receivers, you have ice falling into the water, you have conditions that could pose a bit of a danger. So again, being able to quantify this time that's left open, I think would help us be able to support the idea of boosting our terrestrial reception. Same thing in the east side. You have one of the smaller vessels. This was interesting. This particular vessel made several trips up and down the east arm and was lost to us for about 6 hours each trip. In the Alaska backcountry, 6 hours is a long time. And we're looking at Arctic transits and the types of activities that go on up there. We say in Arctic for everyone, we're starting to see more, just barely at this point, we're starting to see more cargo transits. We expect that traffic to increase as the years go on slowly. And at the same time, you still have people living up on the coastlines who are living traditionally, who are using the coast and the near shore waters for fishing, for hunting. And finding a way to make sure that all of those activities can go on safely while shipping traffic increases in the Arctic is of interest to us. So these are just things that we've worked in before or are working on now. We have provided a Arctic vessel tracking app to communities up north that helps them see vessels that are going by as they're getting ready to go out either fishing or hunting. That information has helped lead to some of the new traffic routing that we're seeing up in the Arctic. And we're also working on ways to automatically alert people, to alert interested parties when vessels are going through sensitive areas. So in this case, walruses, fur seals have been of interest. Anybody who does any sort of megafauna study might be interested in this type of geofencing. So that's us.